Spawn. The anti-hero granted powers after striking a deal with the demon Malebolgia so he could see his wife one last time after his untimely death. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with Albert Simmons in the role of Spawn, but did you know that there are other versions of this character out there? What's going on, all you nerdy folk out there? My name is Jack, and today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite undead anti-hero, Spawn, and some of his alternate versions that we've seen throughout the years, so let's get into it. Number 10, SPAWNMOWER. Prior to making this video, I had no idea this version of Spawn even existed, but now that I know it exists, you have to as well. Appearing very briefly in Archie Comics' Sonic the Hedgehog issue number 8, SPAWNMOWER is a member of the comic book bots created by Dr. Robotnik to help him defeat Sonic, appearing alongside other comic book themed robots such as Botman, Wolverkle, Magbot, Captain Marbot, and the Mighty Bot. You probably guessed it already, but SPAWNMOWER is a cross between Spawn and a lawnmower and was actually the strongest out of the 6. However, he had one fatal flaw. He would periodically stop to strike a pose, and that actually gave Sonic the opening to pull out his spark plug wire and push him off a nearby cliff. Despite all their best efforts, all of them were no match for Sonic, and they did give Robotnik an opening to slip away and fight another day. Number 9. Michael J. White Spawn. Well before the release of black superhero-centered movies like Black Panther and Blade, we were graced with the release of 1997 Spawn starring Michael J. White in the role of Al Simmons, aka Spawn. With a score of 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's needless to say this was a terrible movie. However, it was actually my first introduction to the character of Spawn, so I am a firm believer that everyone should watch this movie at least once. Despite such poor reception, it was still surprisingly faithful to the comics, and White wasn't really that bad of an Al Simmons either, at least, you know, in the physique department. We can talk about the costume and the acting another time. Like so many other iterations, Michael J. White Spawn has no reservations on ending those who deserve to be sent to hell. However, his reliance on guns just to kill regular humans was a really interesting direction to go with, considering how many powers Spawn supposedly has in his arsenal. He is Spawn nonetheless though, and that is why we see him on this list today. Number 8, Spawn X. If we've learned anything from the DC Extended Universe, we've learned that dark, gritty versions of characters don't really translate too well and lead to being poorly received. Todd McFarlane understood this and ended up creating a more PG version of Spawn known as Spawn X, who we follow throughout the Adventures of Spawn series. This is probably the most kid-friendly, cartoony version of Spawn we're ever gonna get, and I'm kind of okay with that because this character is really not meant to be nice. Being a kid's version of the comic book made for adults, it often tiptoes around the topics that made Spawn such a great character, one of which being Al Simmons is not undead and disfigured. He's alive and well, making his connection to the Hellspawn confusing and very weird. Although this version is a whole lot less lethal and a whole more faithful Christian, this is still the Spawn we all know and love. Number 7, Japanese Spawn. Like Wolverine and so many other popular anti-heroes, we saw Spawn picked up by MediaWorks and turned into a manga known as Shadows of Spawn. Published from 1998 to 1999, we follow Ken Kurosawa, a poor street thug who does whatever he has to do to make money in order to take care of his sick sister. Ken is unfortunately eventually murdered by his own clients, and 7 years later, in Al Simmons fashion, was brought back as a Hellspawn. Now living in California, Ken discovers that his sister has overcome her illness and become a very successful teen actress, but that does not stop him from protecting her, as she has now become a target of many supernatural creatures. Created with the purpose of bringing Spawn to a much wider audience, the manga set up the events of Ken's life to be an exact parallel with Al Simmons, making them essentially the same character. Number 6, Gunslinger Spawn. In Spawn number 174 to 175, we learn the story of a runaway soldier known as Jerry Winston, who becomes acquainted with Henry Simmons, who actually happens to be Al Simmons' great-grandfather. We find out that Henry is to be killed alongside Winston for the supposed murder of his family. However, after Winston is hung, he is offered a second chance at life by the demon Mammon, which he accepts, and he is reborn as the Gunslinger Spawn. Armed up to the teeth with weapons, we see Winston murder everyone in town for falsely sentencing him to his death. However, he is commanded by Mammon to leave Henry Simmons alive, as his great-grandson, Al Simmons, will one day become the Spawn that destroys the world. If you've ever wanted to see a Western-themed Spawn, this is the perfect opportunity, so check out the story for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 5, Medieval Spawn. With a similar story to Gunslinger Spawn, we see the 16th century England knight known as Sir John of York, another victim of society's harsh rules and punishments. After mistaking his king's tantrum as a command to murder someone, John actually followed through with that as he thought those were his orders, and next thing you know, Sir John of York was executed by his own lord. Since he was already a pretty psychotic knight who enjoyed killing more than anything, he went to hell and the demon Malebolgia took a liking to him, so they turned Sir John of York into a Hellspawn known as Medieval Spawn. His weapon of choice thereafter was a huge huge battle axe, which he sometimes swapped out for a large cleaver, and of course a shield. With the signature blood red ripped tunic and the black and white color scheme of all the other spawns, John wreaked havoc on those who had wronged him. Number 4. Dark Age Spawn. Long before the arrival of medieval Spawn, we were introduced to the 10th century England version of Spawn, who lived during the Dark Ages after the fall of the Roman Empire. Before becoming a Hellspawn, this mortal was known as the Black Knight or Lord Covenant, and despite his name making it sound like he was a tyrant, he was actually a champion of the people and would often come to the aid of the peasants during this power vacuum of a time for barbaric warlords. This made becoming a Hellspawn a big moral dilemma for him, as he was unsure whether to help innocent peasants from the onslaught of warlords, or become the supreme warlord of Dark Ages Europe himself. Now, it's not really explained when or how he became this period Spawn, or at least, I wasn't really able to find anything, which is a little bit disappointing because I'm already super invested in this character. So honestly, if you know anything more about him, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Number 3. Hellspawn. With what seemed to be the complete opposite goal of Todd McFarlane's Spawn X, Brian Michael Bendis introduced another version of this character to the Image Comics franchise in the form of Hellspawn, a somewhat darker version of the already ominous character. In this spin-off series with 16 issues published throughout the years of 2000-2003, we're introduced into the world of Spawn that deals with more adult, violent, and realistic subject matters. This version still follows Al Simmons, however he is a lot less talkative and a lot more trigger happy, and I really can't blame him, considering he has to go up against the likes of child killers and so much more. Now, if you've got a strong stomach and love darker storylines, I highly recommend you read the spin-off series for yourself because it is pretty freaking cool in my opinion. Number 2. Angel Spawn. Although this version of Spawn is technically still Al Simmons, I thought it deserved a mention, so please don't come at me in the comments. The biggest difference between Angel Spawn and the Spawn we've grown so used to is that instead of the classic cape and chains, he sports a shiny pair of angel wings, and honestly, I think it suits him so much more because it gives this inner conflict between good and evil a visual. How did he get those wings? Well, he was given them by the Mother herself, the creator of the universe and the one who surpasses both heaven and hell in authority after his test to be worthy of humanity. During the test, he is stabbed and killed by Judas, and yes, that is the Judas from the Bible, and for some reason this means he passed the test and the Mother revives Spawn's lifeless body using the forbidden fruit, and this is what gave him the angel wings and the power to defeat both God and Satan. Want to give this story arc a read for yourself? Well, check it out starting with Spawn number 75. And finally, number 1, Omega Spawn. Now, unfortunately, this version of Spawn is not considered canon because the story was never actually finished, but nonetheless, this is the most powerful and terrifying version of Spawn we've ever seen to date. What makes him so terrifying, you ask? Well, in the Omega Spawn storyline, we see what would have happened if both Malebolgia and Satan had their way with Al Simmons, as Satan gave him complete control over Hell and unlimited necro power, which in turn made him more powerful than God and Satan, much like the powers he had when he was Angel Spawn. Omega Spawn's entire purpose was to combine the forces of Earth and Hell in order to defeat Heaven, and for that to happen, Hell actually had to conquer Earth first, which is exactly what Omega Spawn did. He unleashed all the villains imprisoned in Hell and sicked them on the hapless mortals of Earth. Unfortunately, that's all we know about this version of Spawn, as the arc was abruptly dropped and never finished. Still, I can imagine he didn't have too much trouble completing this goal. Well, that'll be it for this video, everyone. Do you have any other versions of Spawn that you'd like to hear us talk about? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe we'll do a part 2 on this video covering them all. Don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd to stay up to date on all things nerdy, and why not ring that notification bell so you know whenever we upload a video. As always, my name is Jack. Thank you so much for watching, and stay nerdy, my friends.